What's up? It's Dr. Taylor, owner of the Washington Wellness Center and host of the Autoimmune Doc podcast. And I want to record this video today it's about supplements for long COVID. And I'm going to show a study, show a paper that was published. And so one of the points of sometimes when I share a study is to just say, you don't have to take my word for it. Look at this published literature that's out there. But one of the reasons why I have liked this study and why I've been showing it to a lot of my long COVID patients or mitochondrial patients or whatever the case is because the doses that are recommended in here are pretty high. Now, the paper is called an Orthomolecular Protocol for long COVID. Now, but if you did this whole protocol, it'd be exorbitantly expensive. So I think that the point is that not everybody can do all these things all the time, but just illustrating again some of these dosages of some of these supplements. It's been a little while since I've published anything on my YouTube channel or my podcast channel. My dad just died pretty tragically and pretty suddenly, so I've just kind of been in hiding here, but I'm excited to put this out there. Again, just to illustrate some of the dosages and some of the things to trial and error, quite frankly, when it comes to solving your long COVID puzzle, which is, something that I see quite a bit of. It's something that I spoke at a seminar in October about long COVID to, 150 or so doctors. And it's just something that I think that the literature on is quite interesting, but it's also getting to the point now where so many people have new symptoms and they're like, I may have had COVID, I may not have had COVID. Anybody with any new onset symptom is kind of thinking, well, is this long COVID? So it's quite, just interesting, this phenomenon. So let's just pull this up. A lot of these supplements are mitochondrial. So again, I have a podcast about long COVID. I've got multiple YouTube videos about this and understanding the mechanisms and the different things that you can apply and use in some of these pathways and things like that. But let's look at this. A lot of this, again, is mitochondrial. So it says, this paper says, and again, it's from the Townsend Letter, which is an alternative medicine, letter and journal and things. And it's called an Orthomolecular Protocol for long COVID. So it says a significant number of COVID-19 patients suffer from the post-acute chronic sequelae, also known as long COVID or post-COVID syndrome. They report a broad range of persistent and debilitating symptoms, such as fatigue, brain fog, pain, breathlessness, and dysrhythmias, heart palpitations, and things like that. These chronic symptoms are believed to be a consequence of excessive production of reactive oxygen species from damaged mitochondria, inflammation from damaged mitochondria. Damaged mitochondria, SARS-CoV-2 can hijack the mitochondria, leading to damaged mitochondria that produce more reactive oxygen species and more inflammatory cytokines and decreased interferon response and things like that. So it says studies have shown that they share common traits with long COVID with things like chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, and symptom relief and sustained recovery can be expected, which bold words, but can be expected by administering an orthomolecular protocol consisting of a combination of precursors, cofactors, and biological response modifiers. So, I mean, I agree with that there should be hope and expectation for that. But I think that, again, the dosaging is the important part of this study. I'm also going to start talking faster because I don't want this to be too terribly long just on my channel, because I want it to be something that I can send to a lot of my clients and just say, hey, as we're experimenting with some of these doses, here's just a paper that shows some of these examples of how high these things go. So this whole thing goes into, long COVID and et cetera. Talks about some of the research behind it, talks about the management of the fatigue and long COVID, the shortness of breath, post-exertional malaise, long-term hard to kick cough, GI, neurological things. So again, there's tons of literature about that and studies about that. There seems to be a persistent inflammatory and excessive reactive oxygen species production that affects mitochondrial function, amongst other things. Our proposed protocol concentrates primarily on neutralizing excessive reactive oxygen species, reestablishing mitochondrial function, and reducing excess inflammation, which is basically the gist of my practice. So it talks about mitochondria. Again, I've got podcast episodes about mitochondria. I have a 3-part podcast series. It's episode number 30, 31, 32. I've got things on this channel on YouTube about like a video about melatonin and mitochondria. I sent it to one of my long hauler clients the other day because we're talking about mitochondria. And not to say that, you know, melatonin's the end all be all answer, but even the graphics, the illustrations, the mechanisms of mitochondrial function that I go through in some of those videos and some of those podcasts really lead to this conversation, or lead to me not needing to diverge more on this. I also have another one on YouTube about carnitine and toxins in mitochondria. But the more that you understand about the mitochondria, that's basically what this is going into, is the mechanisms, the mechanics of the mitochondria. So, you know, there's a dietary protocol. I'm not going to touch on that. It's just like, you know, hydration is critical, and you should eat foods with bright colors and strong flavors and things like that, hyperglycemia, you know, et cetera. But here's the supplements. So here we go into high dose IV vitamin C. I don't do IV vitamin C, but 25 to 50 grams 2 times per week for 4 weeks is a pretty hefty dose. Here's oral vitamin C, 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day. That's not that astronomical. And again, not all of these things are necessary, but it's vitamin C, magnesium, CoQ10, 100 milligrams 3 times a day. Talks about all the things that CoQ10 has been used for: platelet aggregation and the studies and the citations and things, fibrosis, chronic inflammatory disease. CoQ10 performs several cellular functions with relevance to the immune system. CoQ10 is part of the electron transport chain. It's been tested in ME/CFS, chronic fatigue syndrome. So just goes through a lot of the evidence behind the usage of CoQ10 in that dosage. Alpha lipoic acid, another antioxidant, 300 milligrams 2 times a day. This is where we get into some of the high doses. Like this one's crazy high. Carnitine, acetyl L-carnitine. Again, I have another video about carnitine and mitochondria and toxins and solvents, and connecting some things from the literature and how we can lab test that and stuff like that. And I see this in long COVID patients, a need for carnitine. But 4,000 milligrams a day, that's a lot. You know, so a lot of like mitochondrial blends, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but like some of them have, you know, 200 milligrams of carnitine or 250 milligrams. This is 4,000 milligrams a day, which I just think is quite interesting at the dosage there. Here's mixed phospholipids. It says, also going back to the carnitine, it says carnitine may help alleviate fatigue by supporting the production of mitochondrial energy, interfering with inner acetylcholine synthesis of the brain, and via anti-inflammatory, antioxidant mechanisms. It talks about some of the studies with using carnitine together with CoQ10, lipoic acid, and doing that together as a combo effect, which is also the reason why I have these supplements in here, because sometimes blends can cover all your bases, mitochondrial blends. But again, if you're taking a blend and it's got 250 milligrams of carnitine in it, you're nowhere near the recommended dosage from this protocol. So you might need a blend and carnitine, or you might need to do carnitine and CoQ10 and 3 other things or whatever. Mixed phospholipids. The whole point of mixed phospholipids is like phosphatidylcholine is the main one, phosphatidylinositol, phosphatidylethanolamine. And the whole point of that is what's called the lipid replacement theory. Lipid replacement theory, popularized by Garth Nicholson, and what it's saying is that if there's toxic damaged lipids on the mitochondrial membranes and on the cell membranes, then it impairs cellular function and cellular energy production. So as you replace those lipids with things like omega-3 fats and mixed phospholipids, it replaces those damaged membranes, and so it's regenerating the cell membrane with mixed phospholipids. Astaxanthin is an antioxidant. Vitamin E is also an antioxidant that's particularly useful for mitochondria. It's in a lot of mitochondrial blends. 400 IUs 4 times a day. Astaxanthin 4 times a day. So again, some of these need to be done multiple times throughout the day. You want to pour some water on oxidative stress, then pour some water on oxidative stress, then pour some water on oxidative stress, then pour some water on oxidative stress. I see people all the time that come in with bags of supplements. I've never seen anybody being this aggressive with their supplement protocols for their mitochondria. And I'm always like, you need to be as aggressive as you need to be as far as the dosaging and the quantities. So a lot of times people are shooting a bear with a BB gun. In fact, one of my mentors early on, it was Dr. Dan Kalish, said when you look at the mitochondrial blends that every company makes, he's like, these things work as long as you don't underdose people. So it is a dose dependent thing. And I hammer that into people all the time. So if you're my client, you've probably heard that before. N-acetylcysteine, 600 milligrams a day, twice a day, 600 milligrams twice a day. Then glutathione, liposomal glutathione, 1,000 milligrams 4 times a day. That is quite a bit. And I'm a big fan of glutathione and high dosing it too. That is a lot. So, and again, just even from a cost perspective, that's a lot. You know, that's more than carnitine or some of these other things. Liposomal glutathione is not an inexpensive supplement, but you need quite a bit of it to quench this oxidative stress that's associated with long COVID. Omega-3, 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day. Omega-3 is really helpful, but it takes months to budge omega-3 levels. So it's not something that you would expect somebody to feel better at the end of the week, but it's really, really important. Proteolytic enzymes, that one's not as much dose dependent, but actually I have 2 fibrinolytic enzymes right here, nattokinase and Baluch. Nattokinase, they're both very famous for breaking down things, especially in the last 4 years, for breaking down like spike protein and things. There's research that show that they do that. But these enzymes on an empty stomach, 3 times a day on an empty stomach, can go in and break down circulating immune complexes, and they're fibrinolytic, so they break down fibrin clots, or they're proteolytic, and they can break down protein aggregation, protein clumping, fibrosis, and things like that. PEA, so PEA, anti-inflammatory for the brain. Pro-resolving mediators, which is like fish oil on steroids. It's protectins, resolvins, mericins. And there's a 4th one that is not in the supplement that I use. What is it? Protectins, resolvins, mericins, and something else. But anyway, lipoxins. There it is. And so these are like the anti-inflammatory components of fish oil, 500 milligrams 3 times a day. So again, the point is, I think that's basically the end. Safety, other considerations. And it says, although the first 5 supplements have different functions and mechanisms, they all work together to support cellular energy production. The next 4 supplements, astaxanthin, vitamin E, NAC, and glutathione, are powerful antioxidants. You know, melatonin didn't make it into this particular, their orthomolecular protocol, but it's often included in a lot of these supplement protocols or supplement recommendations as a powerful antioxidant. So again, I would refer back to the video that I've done in the past about that one. And then the proteolytic enzymes, the PEA and SPM, also share anti-inflammatory effects. Now, most COVID protocols have something to do with mast cells, histamine, inflammation. So they might add in, and it's mentioned in here a few times, you know, quercetin, curcumin, resveratrol, things like that. But again, you can't be doing everything, and a lot of people are. But instead of getting 12 or 15 supplements, it's more about like, pick these 6 big ones or 8 big ones and hit them really, really hard. And that's kind of the point of this study. So that's why I'm sharing this. So again, I think that's enough. This is an orthomolecular protocol for long COVID from the Townsend letters, from Gonzalez et al. And just a pretty cool paper, in my opinion. So lots of things for you to try. Oh, I guess I will end with this, because I do have these supplements sitting here. I'm a big fan of blends, because they just, you know, have a little bit of everything. But this is ATP 360. It's probably my #1 favorite mitochondrial blend. This is MitoCore. It's probably my #2. I don't have like a order, but the 2 of these are pretty different. You could easily combine them, and you would not be just taking double of the same thing, because their formulations are different. Here's another one called Mitochondrial Recharge. And again, it's very different than these. And here's another one called ENRG, Quantum Cellular ATP Energy, from Systemic Formulas. And all 4 of those are just very, very different in their formulations. But they're still, even if you took all 4 of those, you're not getting anywhere near 4,000 milligrams of carnitine a day. So here's like the carnitine that I like from Numedica. So you'd have to take 2 of these 4 times a day. You'd have to take 8 a day. This thing would last you 12 days, and then you'd need another one. But again, the goal is to do high doses and nudge that needle and not have to do this forever. Here's a CoQ10. We carry a handful of different CoQ10s. I just grabbed one off the shelf from Numedica. This is an NAD that, again, I just grabbed off the shelf just to kind of chat about. But Quicksilver makes, some NAD, some CoQ10, some liposomal melatonin, things like that. That's just the dosages are not the same from Quicksilver products as they are in this protocol. But anyway, all those things are for the mitochondria. And again, if you go back and listen to my podcast, I think number 30 is about the basics of mitochondria. The 31 is about how can you test for mitochondria? How do you know? What are the signs? What are the symptoms? What are the things to monitor progress, and et cetera? And then number 32 is about what can you do? So supplements, exercise, red light therapy, sauna, cold thermogenesis, what are the mechanisms behind that? And I think that red light is one of the most exciting, but it's also some of the things that, like, if you put all your hope into a red light, it's probably not going to change your life. But a combined effect on all these things, mitochondrial, can absolutely transform, your prognosis or your symptomatology. So mito is the point of this protocol for long COVID. And then again, some people have gut issues, some people have histamine issues. I don't think that every long hauler is this paper, but I do think that this is a really, really helpful starting place for a lot of people, especially with the chronic fatigue, post-exertional malaise, POTS type symptoms, neurotype symptoms, etc. So thanks. Share this with somebody that that's maybe been struggling a little bit more in the last couple of years, and maybe it could help them too. Leave us a rating and a review. I never really say that on my YouTube videos, but I probably should. But share it, rate, review. Check me out on Instagram also, and my podcast as well. Thanks.